Likely one of the toughest decisions I ever had to make is when I chose to go to St. Joseph Seminary. I had to leave my house. I had to sell my house. In other words, I had to deal with the contents inside the house. I had to do something with a paintball business, and I also had to leave a fairly stable job. And I was really embarking on a path that I wasn't sure what I was getting myself into. But eventually the time in the seminary led me to Franciscan formation, and here I am as a Franciscan. And I would say it's a blessing that I am a Franciscan. It's a blessing to be a Christian, to be a Catholic. In our first reading from the book of Joshua, the people have to make a difficult decision. In one sense, it ought to be an easy decision, but it really is a decision of commitment. Joshua is going to renew the covenant, and his whole household is going to renew the covenant, and Joshua is asking the people if they are on board. In other words, do they want to be part of the covenant? Now, this covenant will contain commitment. They will have to stay committed to God. In other words, they can't allow other gods to get in the way. The temptation, even in the wilderness, was to worship false gods. And so they are to commit to the living and the true God. Now, this is really, really our faith is about a relationship. We're committing to a relationship that we are going to, through thick and thin, we are going to stay connected to God. But it's God who is going to guide us in life. It's God that's going to nourish us and help direct our lives, and also going to nourish especially our inner being when we have to make the difficult decisions. One of my favorite readings is contained in our second reading, the letter to the Ephesians, for a wedding day. And I've tried to convince many couples to use it as one of their readings, and yet many of them don't. And the reason for this is because of the one lines that says, "Wives, be subject to your husbands as you are to the Lord." Now, the most important word in this whole text, even in that verse, is as. Sometimes we think, subject to, means I got to get them beer, I got to get them nachos, I got to, lift their feet up when I'm vacuuming in the house, things like that. But it's connected to the Lord. In other words, the Lord will sacrifice himself for the benefit of others. And so we have to strive to do things for the benefit of others. But of course, this is a mutual challenge, and when people commit themselves in marriage, we would say that this is a very difficult decision, although it's also a decision with great blessing. This is a commitment of relationship, and how important relationships are, because ultimately we all want a companion on the journey. We don't want to travel alone in life. Now, in the gospel reading, the people have a difficult decision to make. They're going to continue to follow Jesus. He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood has life. So that's at the core of it, is when we eat the body and blood of Christ, we're receiving life. Both give us life. It's a life-giving thing to do, to go to Mass. And hopefully, the music, hopefully the prayers, hopefully the message sort of enhances that this is a place where we can be encouraged in our lives, we can receive life, and how important that is, because when we receive these great gifts from God, then we can be life-giving in our places where we dwell and where we work. Now, the disciples are given a choice. Are you also going to leave? But what Jesus is really saying is, who do you say that I am? And Peter identifies Jesus as the Holy One of God. You are the Holy One of God, and even though I don't understand what you're saying, I am still going to follow you. We don't exactly fully understand God, and yet we can still commune with God, we can still follow God, because ultimately we know that Creator of all things knows better than we do, and can guide us and nourish us and encourage us in our lives. And so as we gather around the table, Lord, to eat the flesh and to drink the blood of Jesus Christ, we do this knowing that this is not flesh and blood like you and I, but this is a life-giving flesh and blood that we are consuming so that we can go out and we can be life-giving towards others in our lives.